Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time here, hi, my name is Carrington. Not your first time here, hi, welcome back. If you enjoy books and makeup type content, this is definitely going to be the channel for you, so make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, click the little bell. Don't forget, if you enjoy this video, to give this video a thumbs up, and let's go ahead and let's dive on into today's video, which is going to be talking about 5 books or book series that I would not recommend after reading them. Disclaimer, if you liked these books, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Reading subjective. Some people like romance, some people like fantasy, some people like war books, some people like extreme horror, some like splatterpunk, some like mystery, some like thrillers, some like government mysteries, you know, like the CIA series, whatever, things like that. Some people like nonfiction. Okay, we're gonna be okay. All right, it's okay to have differing opinions. It's gonna be fine. All right, so in today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 books I would just not recommend to you. So if you guys are wanting to see what those are and why I would not recommend them, then definitely keep on watching. First, starting off, I feel like this book set was fine, but for me personally, I could have done without, and that's going to be this right here. This is Hocus Pocus, where it has like the original story and the sequel. My reason being is I love the movies, okay? You didn't really care that much for the second one, but the first movie, Chef's Kiss, like that is Halloween. Like that is a movie I have to watch every Halloween. That and The Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline, like there's just some stuff that we have to watch. And Hocus Pocus is one of them. But in these books, they're really easy to read. All 2 books are in here. But what I love sometimes about books is that you get a lot more from them than you do the movies. Like you get more of like the characters' thoughts or opinions on something that maybe you can't get in the movie because you're not inside their heads, or there's like twists or like additional details that like really elevate the story. This book right here is genuinely exactly word for word the movies. So if you're somebody where you don't like differences in the books versus the movies, you're going to love this. I personally just always say I love books more because you get more from it. You get those thoughts, you get those feelings, you get the extra added details, sometimes a different ending, sometimes additional characters that really provided something in the book that you just didn't get unless they were in the movie too, right? That kind of like really made a difference. And so I personally just wouldn't recommend these because they're just so word for word from the movie, and like nothing changes, nothing's different, how they look and everything else like that is the same. So I personally would just watch the movies of these because I really love the actors in that movie, and it was really good. This next book may be unpopular, but I struggled so much with this book, and I ranked this. I think I read it like a year or 2 years ago, and when I was ranking that in like a book ranking, last 5 books that I read, I hated this book so much. That's going to be Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister by Gregory Maguire. He is also the one who wrote Wicked, which I like that. But let me just say, I tried so hard to get into this. This is basically like a retelling of Cinderella. And basically it kind of just like starts out about her name wasn't Cinderella, right? And there was those 2 sisters and how the mom and them meet and how Cinderella comes to be. And I think that it was like good, but I just, for whatever reason, struggled to really just like get into this. It felt really slow paced. And then on top of that, it has kind of like some of like how you would say things like in like a long time ago, like ye and thou and stuff like that. Like they'll talk like that sometimes, and I always struggle with that. I don't know what it is, but I just could not get into this book. I think like the overarching, like how it came to be is definitely like a lot more realistic than like the Cinderella movie like played it out to be. It gives a lot more like detail into how Cinderella came about, not necessarily so much how she went on to become like the princess. It's definitely about how Lady Tremaine was able to become the stepmother of Cinderella and how Cinderella became Cinderella even though her name wasn't originally Cinderella. That makes any sense. But again, it was just really, really slow for me. I didn't like the language and the dialogue, and it just felt so like such a slow burn. Like this is like a 300 or 400 page book. I feel like we could have told this in 200, 300 pages easily. I have another unpopular but popular opinion, but just hear me out, okay? This is going to be It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. It Ends With Us I really liked. I feel like you either really like Colleen Hoover or you don't, and I do enjoy some of her books. I don't enjoy others. I really liked It Ends With Us, and the reason being is because it really kind of gives an idea of like how you can go your whole life seeing domestic violence and still end up in a domestic violence situation, and how it can be so hard to leave or so hard to figure out that you're being a victim of domestic violence. And I feel like people are like, that's not how domestic violence is, but it very much is. I think that was well done. And then I liked like how it talks about like her and Atlas and their like teenager phase and how they like came back together. Like I liked all of those aspects in that as well. I know people really wanted to see what happened with Atlas and Lily. I think I'm starting to get sick. Lovely. With Atlas and Lily. And I totally get where they want to see what's going to happen next. But this book just felt just off to me. I don't know how to explain. It was just so off. And it just seemed very just like fantasy fairy tale. And granted, I do know that like when you leave a relationship and you're trying really hard to just not have anything happen to you or your child, that you will literally just, because that's the most dangerous time, is after you have left. And usually it's about 6 months or so after you leave that it can be like the most dangerous time for a woman. So where she would just kind of want to take things really slow with Atlas, and I just feel like just the amount of things that were going on that she really should have invested more in therapy than worrying about Atlas and how to set good boundaries with Ryle. I feel like that's the direction this should have taken than this. I just kind of feel like we had such a good book with It Ends With Us and how strong that was about like domestic violence, and then it just almost seems like, oh well, now she's gone, and oh yeah, Ryle gets like riled up. Oh, no pun intended, but I mean that works. So Riles gets riled up about it, but I really think it would have been good to see her like in therapy and how to appropriately set boundaries with Ryle while also having like a safe plan, backup, and just a lot of other things to it that I think could have been better. This next one is going to be In Her Head. This was this author's first ever book, and so I really like to support first time authors and their books, give them a chance, read them. And this book just kind of fell short. As you can tell, the writing is huge, and altogether I think there's like 120 pages. It's something like that. There's no page numbers on there, which I don't care for, but I think with as much that is going on in this book, it needs to be a whole lot more than like 120 pages. And granted, this is the author's first book, so maybe she's gauging what she needs to do to improve. So first of all, this book has so many spelling, grammatical errors, and sometimes sentences in there where I'm just like, why is this sentence here? This doesn't make sense. Then on top of that, I needed a lot more. This is about a girl whose brother goes missing, and she is determined to find out what happened to him. So she goes on this mission, but I really needed more background into like the family, into the like police details, like what's going on with the search. It just kind of glossed over it kind of quickly. I feel like it really needed a lot more details. And then when she, finds out what happens to her brother, I don't want to spoil it, but I was like, I need more information as to how this happened, what's going to happen now, what next steps are going to be in place, how something like this could have happened, what was going through this person's mind, what was going through the brother's mind, what's going through everybody else's mind, what's going to happen now this is over. Are we now going to do therapy? Are we going to move on? What's going to happen to everyone else? What's going to happen to the detective? What's going to happen to this whole entire police ring? What's going to happen to this whole entire drug ring? What's going to happen to all these people that were involved? And I just feel like it just, again, at the end, just kind of like breezed over it. I feel like she spent so much of this book focusing on her trying to find the brother that I was just like, okay, but what's happened so far with the brother? What's happened so far with the case? And then what happens after? Like, what is life after love? Do you believe in love, life after love? Like, what happens after, right? Like, what happens to your life after? And I just feel like it just fell so short that I could never recommend this. All right, this last one, I know you guys have heard me rant and rave about this so much recently, but let me tell you, I still could not recommend this no matter what. And that's going to be the Raised by a Killer series. Listen. The first 2-3 books, I was so hooked with this series. Just so you know, check trigger warning, but it's like an extreme horror novel. So there's any kind of trigger warnings you could have, we're going to probably be in there. But I don't like the way this is written. And I know I've said that 100 times. I don't like the way this is written. It is written in a third person point of view, but it's through her side of the story. Because even on this, it says with each book, Deicide, who's the main character, will grow older, giving us an inside look at how her life has been affected due to her upbringing. Okay, so Deicide. It's always in third person. It even talks about Deicide in third person. Like, Deicide's tiny legs ran down the hallway fast, and her tiny fingers brushed against the fresh burns, and like, but then it always focuses like on her and what's going on with her. Because if she's not there, right, she's not with her dad at work, or she's not over at her grandma's house, you don't know what's going on with them. You don't know anything about what's happening. But then you'll have these italices where these are her thoughts. I just feel like this could have been done so much better if this was done in first person. Like, this was just Deicide throughout, where it was like, before turning around and showing my wet cheeks, I pulled up, and then go on, and then be like, I wish I could say, or wow, this is a lot better than being in the closet, or whatever the case may be. It needed to be in first person. But this could have been, I could have been like, I would still recommend these though, even outside of that travesty and the spelling and grammatical, and sometimes the sentences don't make sense either. Could have easily looked past that, because these first couple of books were really, really good and well thought out. And what I mean by that is that the first few books are about her being little. Like, we're starting at age 4. And she's starting to help lure victims for her dad at like parks, things like that. And she's now going to be starting to go to school and preschool and things like that. So she really needs to know what she can and cannot say. So it's kind of like the dad like trying to explain why he does what he does, and tries to like train her to like toughen up and not allow her to spill anything. And he does that in very, very crazy ways, right? Like breaking arms, things like that. But I think like that would be so much more interesting to see how each age, how her connection with her dad grows, changes in terms of like school, things like that. Because then what happens after about the third book, it kind of starts in the third book, is she runs away with this uncle she had no idea about and goes to this cannibalistic cult And everything that happens there is just like so, just like there's no way this is going to like this would ever happen. There's no way that this even makes sense, and I have a lot of questions. And then the rest of the books just keep delving into like life after this cult or in this cult, and I'm just like, this could have been so much better. It could have been just so amazing just to watch somebody struggle with like that one aspect of having a dad or a family as like serial killers who harvest meat. Like that's their whole point, is just for that. And of course, like obviously their own sadistic pleasure, but like the whole point is for them to, you know, get meat as well. And just like struggling with herself like internally, and struggling with and making friends, and struggling with parent dynamics and family dynamics, I think could have been so much more interesting than suddenly we're talking about a cult where none of the stuff would have happened. Like this would never be allowed. Doesn't matter where they're at. Don't matter if the cops care or not. Absolutely not. No. There's so many questions, and that book just went down. That series went downhill. I'm so sorry, but it was terrible. That is it for today's video. I hope that you all enjoyed. Let me know some books down below that you all would not recommend to anyone else ever. Let me know all that down below. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this type of content, to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you guys have subscribed. Click the little bell so you can be notified of more of my book and makeup content. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye.